I'm Bill Adams, and my cousin Roger. Several years ago, we put together some things on our family, the Kesler family from out of Prospect. At this time, I have a lot of updated stuff that I want to present into that. It's something that I had promised my mother, my granddaddy, and other family members that I would do. It's something that I've been working on for the last 40 years. William Terrell Kesler and Mary Cordelia Crump is my grandfather. He had 11 children, and his children were born either in Banks County, Franklin County, or Jackson County. Their names are, the oldest boy was William Arminus Kesler, and he married Myrtle Collins of Stevens County, and later he married Lucille Powers. The other one, other family member in this is Conard Kesler, and Conard married Pruitt. The other one in this is my mother, Harriet Elizabeth Kesler, who married my father, Rafe Adams. The other one in our family is Irving Kesler, and married Katie Lou Payne. One other is Jane Elizabeth Kesler, and she married our Richard. One of my aunts is Sue Kesler, and Sue Kesler married Clark Terrell. The other one was Conard Kesler, and Conard Kesler married Pruitt. Then out of that, looking at their family, and all, this family goes all the way back to the Prospect area down in Banks County. And when I want to look at this family, I like to look at these three. W.T. Kesler married a Crump. James Kesler married a Martin. George Kesler married a Miller. Henry Kesler married a Cromer. So with us, the families that we are all kin to is Crumps, Martins, Millers, and Cromers, and in my case, Adams, and others is Terrell and various other family members. But I did promise them that someday I would up this record. Some of the things that I want to zero in more than anything else is James Monroe Kesler and Elijah Crump. Both of these were our great-grandfathers. Both served in the Civil War, starting off first with the 34th Georgians. James Monroe Kesler was extremely a good person, and as a sharpshooter in the Army. They started off when the war started. I like to go through that first. When the war started, the 34th Georgians, when the war first started, which Elijah Crump and James Monroe Kesler were in early part of 1862, the 34th was organized, trained part around here, but then went to Marietta, Georgia. And from there, in early 1862, they went up through Knoxville, Tennessee, into Kentucky, and later back. Then by early November 1862, the 34th was sent to Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Oh, that's the last siege there, right?
In Mississippi. Then, after the surrender there, they were sent back to Georgia, and out of Georgia they were reorganized, and they fought up at Missionary Ridge and all the way down to Atlanta from September 1862 to September 1864.
Well, I'm surprised they made it back from Vicksburg.
Then in 1864, September 1864, the 34th Georgians met with John Bell Hood, and there went up into Franklin, Tennessee at the Battle of Franklin, Tennessee on November 30th, 1864. Now, when I checked my records at that particular time, James Monroe Kesler had moved over to the 2nd Battalion of Sharpshooters.
Wow.
And I do have the medal that my granddaddy Kesler gave me that he has, and a little later I'll show you a picture of it. I have given that medal to my son, and I hope someday he'll bring it back to the Corps and put it in the museum here in honor of James Monroe Kesler. But he was a sharpshooter, and to be a sharpshooter, you had to shoot a target 300 to 500 yards, anywhere between 3 to 5 inches.
Wow.
And that, so he
Had a
was
lot of
excellent.
these, they had with Currey
Yeah,
troops that was in
War.
World War II.
So they're gonna put it up here in town?
they'll put it in town, yeah, because they have got a section set up there now for the Civil War veterans.
Well, that's great.
As I mentioned earlier, in September 1864, the Confederate Army was split into two areas. You had the Northern Virginia Army up there, and then you had the Tennessee Division, the Western Division, and John Bell Hood had that area and carried those men up to Franklin, Tennessee. And in a period of about 4 to 7 hours, over 8,000 men were killed. Now the 31st Georgians showed up about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, reason being General Lee was a little bit late in getting his men up there, and they were covering railroads. But that was good, because the fighting was extremely good. And I have found the area where the 2nd Battalion of sharpshooters were, and they were close to a man from South Carolina, States' Rights Gift, and the men from South Carolina. They were close to them. And in that battle, in a period of about 6 hours, 6 generals were killed. The most generals ever killed at one time in the Civil War, the Confederate War.
Good gracious.
These men, after December 1864, they came back to Georgia, and out of there, a lot of them went with the 56 Georgians, went over into South Carolina, North Carolina, and surrendered. Most of them surrendered around Hartwell, Georgia, and then they came home. And my granddaddy used to tell me about his mother. Said when he came in, walked on the step, she made a comment to some of the other children, "That's James, he's come home." And a lot of this I do get from my granddaddy, because my granddaddy used to tell me that he would go with his daddy, James Monroe Kesler, to Atlanta to carry peaches and things like that, where they would sell them. And then part of that, he was telling me several times he was down, especially one time they had a riot where a lot of rioting between blacks and whites took place. He told me about that. And at this time, I want to show you a picture
Okay.
of what he got as a medal. Now he got that medal somewhere when he went to Atlanta, where old soldiers gathered, and it had to be around 1888, 1892. And what it says on there, it has on the front of it up there, it says CSA. It's made out of sterling silver. That's CSA. Then down from it, it says sharpshooter rifle, sharpshooter small bore, then sharpshooter, I forget what that says right now since I gave it to my son. And in the bottom part of it is a target. It's a target just like any man that's been in the military and has fired at a prone position at 500 yards. It's a target, and in the middle of the target, it has a globe, and off that globe, it looks a little bit like the Marine Corps emblem does today. And around it, it has a crest, and then that crest is there. And as I say, my granddaddy gave it to me when I was a small boy and told me a little bit about his daddy. As I say, I gave it to my son, and he has it now. But here's a picture, a little bit, how it would look.
Okay, let's see. Oh, let's put it up there where we can see. Oh yeah, a little bit closer to the bottom of it. The sharpshooter had to hit 500 yards, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Rifle, yes, got that on the CSA.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out good. Okay, down at the bottom, it said James Monroe Kesler, sharpshooter, Confederate of the Army of Tennessee.
Let me start at this particular time. I want to go with Elijah Crump, William Henry Kesler, and James Monroe Kesler. All three were with the 31st Georgians at Vicksburg at the battle there that took place over a period of about a month and a half, a fierce battle. Now this is a map of Vicksburg, and I've got an arrow pointing to just about where the 34th Georgians was located around July up to July the 3rd of 1863. And the arrow points where they were located.
Okay, the arrow. Let me bring it up a little bit so you get the arrow. There it is. Okay. All right.
That's about where they are located, and here's a picture standing by the monument that's in front of it, because behind there at one time was a fort, and they were staying in part of that fort at this time. Here's where Stevenson's division in Georgia, 34th, is in this group, stationed there at Vicksburg. That's where they are located. Now, right across the road from them, up on the hill, Indiana had some rifles there, had some rifles and had some new ammunition at that time, and some of that was the type that when they shot it out of the barrels or the big guns, they would explode. And getting into this, the part that I want to bring up when I look at it is William Henry Kesler, who was killed at Vicksburg. I went down there and spent 2 days researching and looking at it, where he might be buried or what happened to him on July the 3rd, 1863. The closest that I can come is that he is buried down about 5 or 6 miles north of there. As at one time was a Jewish cemetery, and in that cemetery is broken up by states that was there. And I truly believe that William Henry Kesler, when he was killed on July the 3rd, he's buried at this cemetery. This is where the Georgia soldiers are buried there at Vicksburg. And in that particular cemetery, there is a lot of Georgia soldiers buried there, and in the tombstone says, here's unknown. One is tombstone, and off to the right there's a lot of them that say unknown. And I truly believe that he's buried in one of those unknown cemeteries. And I get that based on some people that I talked to that's in Vicksburg. And I say I have been looking at this for many years, going back and reading the records, looking at it, and I truly believe that is exactly where he is buried down there. You know that at the Battle of Vicksburg, it was the 1st Battalion of Georgia sharpshooters. So sometimes after that battle, and Grant released the men to come home, the men came home to Georgia, they reorganized, and they were as I say earlier, that when they reorganized them, they were with this campaign that fought all the way from Missionary Bridge to Atlanta. Now, when he went in to be a sharpshooter, I don't know, but it was sometimes between that time that he left Vicksburg and before he went up to Franklin, Tennessee with Lee. And
well, you know, to be a sharpshooter, that takes a lot of practice and special skill, doesn't it? I mean, they have to really have that act for it and be talented in that to be able to shoot 500 yards. That's a long way to be able to shoot what size of a bullet target.
It was. They were good. They had to be good. And my granddad used to tell me about when he'd go out with him as a young boy into the woods hunting, how good he was. He'd tell me about that, how good he was. And he also told me about when he was killed by lightning. He was killed by lightning.
lightning struck?
Yeah, he was killed when he was about 55, 56.
Say, how did he die? Lightning struck.
But as I say, I look at this and I do know that he was, when I look at it, he was a Georgia sharpshooters. And the part that I don't know at the particular time, and I'm looking into more records on this, is that when they left and went over into the Carolinas, South Carolina, and then they surrendered and came home somewhere around Hartwell, Georgia, when they came home. My granddaddy told me that his mother told him later that when he stepped up on the porch, he made a comment, "That's James, he's come home."
Yeah.
James, he's come home.
James something.
And I can remember as a young boy when I was about 5 or 6, that'd be either 1939 or 1940, I'd go down to the old home place in Homer, down at Homer, down that area. And I think that was my granddaddy Kesler, brother John Kesler, Reverend John Kesler, who was a pastor. And somewhere back there on the back, I would see an older black man back there, and he was up in his 80s and over like that.
Oh, is that
And
right?
the story that I have is that coming back, he was a young boy, about 5 or 6 years old. He came home and lived with that family during that time. I truly wish I had researched and got more information from my granddaddy when he told me about that.
What?
But I do remember seeing him down there, and I asked him, I said, "Who is that?" And he says, "That's John." That's John, and I do still, remember that part of it. But as I say, when I look at all this, I look at our family, I'm extremely proud of what they are. Another part in my family that I do have, besides the CSA target that was given to him as being a sharpshooter. When he got it, I don't know, but I truly believe he got it somewhere around 1888 to 1892.
They had to qualify for